डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैजिस्ट्रेट हो, बाहर अचानक फ्लड आ गया है और रूल्स के हिसाब से तुम रिलीफ फंड नहीं यूज कर सकते विदाउट प्रॉपर अप्रूवल्स। लेकिन सामने लोग भूखे हैं, तुम क्या करोगे? रूल फॉलो करोगी या अपनी अंदर की आवाज सुनोगे?
इंटरेस्टिंग।
आज हम इसी इंटरेस्टिंग कॉन्फ्लिक्ट की ऐसी गहरी पाठशाला में चलेंगे। ये लेक्चर तुम्हारे लिए सुपर इंपॉर्टेंट होने वाला है दोस्त।
बिल्कुल।
और हाँ, इससे पहले कि हम इस नॉलेज के समुंदर में डाइव करें, जल्दी से सब्सक्राइब बटन दबा दो, नोटिफिकेशन बेल को जोर से बजा दो और कमेंट में बताओ तुम उस डीएम की जगह होते तो क्या करते। लेट्स गो।
बिल्कुल। Today we're going on a grand tour of ethics and its foundational concepts. हमारा learning map बिल्कुल clear है।
ओके
We will cover a series of important questions starting from 2023. First, conscience versus laws, rules and regulations. कौन ज़्यादा reliable है?
द बिग वन।
Then we'll tackle 2022's key terms: constitutional morality, conflict of interest और probity.
अच्छा।
उसके बाद we'll see the difference between laws and rules from 2020. फिर we'll do a deeper dive into constitutional morality from 2019.
राइट।
आगे एक केस स्टडी देखेंगे, डैम कंस्ट्रक्शन फ्रॉम 2018. We'll also analyze a fascinating statement: in doing a good thing, everything is permitted which is not prohibited.
ओह आई लव दैट वन।
Next, law and ethics as tools for controlling human conduct from 2016.
ओके।
We'll explore why a public servant needs more than just legal compliance, a 2015 question. और फाइनली वॉइस ऑफ कॉन्शियंस क्या है और उसे कैसे सुने फ्रॉम 2013. लेट्स बिगिन दिस मेगा सेशन.
Okay, let's unpack our first big question from 2023. Is conscience a more reliable guide when compared to laws, rules, and regulations in the context of ethical decision making? Discuss.
ब्रॉड माइक्रो थीम: कॉन्शियंस वर्सेस एक्सटर्नल रूल्स.
Simple रखते हैं. Conscious तुम्हारा inner moral compass है, जो बताता है सही क्या, गलत क्या. It's based on your values. समझे?
Or laws, rules, regulations.
Yeah.
These are externally imposed standards designed to maintain order and justice in society.
Right.
They are uniform for everyone.
Imagine a traffic light. The law says red means stop.
बिल्कुल.
बट अब रात के 2 बजे है, रोड एकदम खाली और एक एम्बुलेंस को रास्ता देना है, तब तुम्हारा कॉन्शियस कहता है कि लाइट तोड़ना इज द राइट थिंग टू डू टू सेव अ लाइफ.
Exactly.
That's the conflict right there.
Exactly. So for this question, the answer structure is key. You need to present a balanced view.
Okay.
First, argue for conscience. Then, argue for laws. Finally, conclude with the synthesis.
चलो let's break it down. Introduction में you define both terms. फिर body में we start with when conscience is a better guide. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Let's look at the model answer points. First, laws can be immoral or outdated.
जैसे
Colonial era में, the Rowlatt Act was legal but it was ethically unjust. Freedom fighters followed their conscience to oppose it.
सही बात है.
Second, laws often lag behind ethical progress. सोचो whistleblowers के बारे में.
Good example.
Officers like Ashok Khemka or Sanjeev Chaturvedi acted on their conscience to expose wrongdoing, even when rules didn't protect them adequately.
Right.
Third, humanitarian grounds. जब rules से suffering हो, during the COVID-19 lockdown, many IS officers bent the rules to help migrant workers, arranging food and transport.
हाँ, that was amazing.
This was their conscience speaking, not the rule book.
Fourth, conscience respects human dignity. Laws can be mechanical. Irfan Alam Samman Foundation organized rickshaw pullers and gave them dignity जब कोई specific policy ही नहीं थी. That's conscience in action. So cool, na?
And finally, conscience encourages ethical leadership. T.N. Session didn't just follow the law, he used his deep ethical conviction, his conscience, to reform the entire electoral process.
Okay, let's do some cross-questioning on this. How should one structure the pro-conscience part of the answer for maximum marks?
Start with a clear topic sentence like, conscience serves as a crucial guide in situations where laws fall short.
Acha.
Then use 4-5 distinct subheadings like unjust laws or humanitarian crises and provide a specific, concrete example for each. This shows analytical depth.
What if everyone starts following their conscience and ignoring laws? क्या chaos नहीं हो जाएगा?
Absolutely. That's the main counter-argument. That's why you must qualify it by saying that conscience must be informed and guided by constitutional principles, not personal whims.
How does one differentiate between a genuine conscience and a simple disagreement with a law?
The motive matters. Conscience is based on a higher moral principle, like justice, human dignity, or equality.
Right.
Disagreement can be based on mere inconvenience or personal benefit.
For the TN session example, how do you specifically link it to conscience instead of just doing his job?
You highlight that the letter of the law existed, but he applied the spirit with exceptional zeal and integrity.
Okay.
This drive came from his deep personal conviction, his conscience, that free and fair elections are the soul of democracy.
How do you conclude this section before moving to the next?
With a summary sentence. Something like, thus, conscience acts as a vital corrective to the inherent limitations of formal laws and rules.
Awesome. Now pause and practice saying this. Conscience can be a superior guide when laws are unjust, lag behind ethical progress, or ignore the demands of human dignity. Rehearse.
In short, In certain critical situations, conscience is the essential upgrade to our legal operating system. Now, for the second part of the answer, we look at the other side.
The flip side.
What's fascinating here is how the same inner voice can lead to disastrous outcomes.
First, conscience is subjective. सबका अलग-अलग होता है based on upbringing, religion. For example, some people justify honor killings based on their twisted conscience. But for the law, it's cold-blooded murder.
Bilkul. Second, conscience may justify immoral acts. A misguided conscience can make wrong things seem right. Terrorists often believe they are serving a higher moral cause, which is a dangerous delusion.
Third, lacks universality and consistency. Laws apply to everyone equally. Conscience doesn't. During COVID, some people refused to wear masks based on personal conscience, risking public safety.
Fourth, conscience is unenforceable. You can't verify an inner voice. A corrupt officer can justify taking a bribe by saying he is helping his poor family. Law has checks and balances.
सही बात है. And finally, conscience may fail under pressure. डर या pressure में लोग अपने conscience को दबा देते हैं. In the 1984 anti-Sikh riots, many neighbors didn't help the victims out of fear.
The conclusion for the whole answer is crucial. You must say that both are necessary.
Okay.
Laws provide the structure, the skeleton. Conscience provides the soul, the spirit. An ideal public servant has a well-developed conscience that is guided by constitutional morality and has a deep respect for the rule of law.
So it's not an either-or choice.
No, it's a both-and combination.
Let's do a quick cross-questioning on this part. How would you structure this section to score well?
Very similar to the first part. A clear topic sentence like, however, relying solely on conscience is fraught with peril.
Okay.
Then 4 or 5 subheadings like subjectivity, lack of universality, with a short, powerful example for each.
How do you avoid sounding contradictory after arguing for conscience in the first half?
By using transition words like however, on the other hand, despite its strengths, this signals to the examiner that you are presenting a nuanced, multifaceted argument.
Which example is the most powerful to show the danger of conscience?
The examples of honor killings or terrorism are very strong because they show how a deeply held conscience can lead to acts that society universally condemns as heinous crimes.
How important is the final conclusion in a discuss type of question?
It's the most important part. A weak conclusion can ruin a great body. Your conclusion must synthesize, not just summarize. It should provide a balanced, forward-looking solution like the skeleton and soul analogy we discussed.
In the conclusion, is it good to mention a philosophical idea?
Yes, mentioning something like Gandhiji's talisman or Rawlsian justice to guide one's conscience adds a layer of depth and shows wider reading.
Great. Practice this thought, dost. An unchecked conscience can be subjective, biased, and a dangerous justification for immoral acts. Isko socho.
In short, relying only on conscience is like navigating a ship in a storm with just a gut feeling and no compass or map.
चलो, अब एक rapid fire round करते हैं. From 2022, this is a must know. Write short notes on the following in 30 words each. I. Constitutional morality. I. Conflict of interest. 3. Probity in public life. 4. Challenges of digitalization. 5. Devotion to duty.
Broad, micro-theme, core concepts in ethics. Let's start with constitutional morality. In simple terms, it means upholding the core values present in our constitution like justice, equality, liberty, and fraternity above everything else.
Especially when they clash with popular societal norms.
Exactly. Or political pressure.
Best example, the Supreme Court's Navtej Singh Johar verdict, which decriminalized homosexuality.
Perfect example.
It chose constitutional morality, individual liberty and dignity, over popular morality. That's so powerful, na? Let's cross-question this. How do you structure a 30-word answer?
Use a define, elaborate model. Sentence 1, a crisp definition. Sentence 2, explain its significance or give a key example. No extra words.
Is constitutional morality a written rule or more of a feeling?
It's the unwritten spirit derived from the written text. It's about internalizing the Constitution's soul, not just memorizing its articles.
Can a law itself be against constitutional morality?
Yes, and that's when the Supreme Court steps in with its power of judicial review to strike down that law.
Isn't this concept just for judges?
Not at all. It's a duty for everyone, citizens, public servants, politicians. It's about making constitutional values a part of our daily conduct.
How can a student practice constitutional morality?
Simple. By treating everyone with equality, respecting different opinions, and standing up against any form of discrimination you witness.
Okay, time to practice. Pause and practice saying. Constitutional morality is prioritizing the core values of the Constitution over popular opinion or social pressure.
In short, constitutional morality is the soul of the Constitution that guides all our actions. Next up, conflict of interest. This situation arises when your personal interests, financial, familial, or otherwise, clash with your official duties.
which can lead to biased or unfair decisions.
Exactly.
Super simple example, a government officer awarding a contract to a company owned by their own relative.
That's a classic one.
That's a clear conflict of interest.
It breaks public trust completely.
Now for the questions. What's the difference between actual and potential conflict of interest?
Actual is when bias has already happened. Potential is when a situation exists that could lead to bias in the future.
Acha.
Both are ethically problematic and must be addressed.
How can one avoid it? The answer structure should highlight this.
Yes, your answer should mention the two key principles, disclosure and recusal.
Matlab?
You must disclose the potential conflict and then recuse yourself, meaning you step away from the decision-making process.
Can it be unintentional?
Yes, sometimes people don't realize their personal relationships are affecting their professional judgment. That's why clear institutional guidelines and a code of conduct are crucial.
Is accepting a small gift a conflict of interest?
It can create a perception of conflict, which is just as damaging to public trust. That's why most codes of conduct have very strict rules about gifts.
What is the single most important value compromised in a conflict of interest?
Impartiality. The public has a right to expect that decisions will be made on merit, not based on personal connections.
Got it. Practice this, dost. Conflict of interest is when personal interests have the potential to corrupt professional judgment and compromise impartiality.
In short, avoiding conflict of interest is fundamental to maintaining impartiality and public trust. Number 3, probity. This word means more than just honesty. It means having absolute integrity, uprightness, and complete transparency in all public functions.
It's about being ethically flawless and accountable.
Yes, perfectly put.
Again, the best example is T.N. Session. He resisted all political pressure and enforced electoral rules with strict impartiality. That is the gold standard of probity.
Indeed.
Okay, let's cross-question.
Right.
How is probity different from integrity?
This is a classic question. Integrity is about being honest and having strong moral principles.
Okay.
Probity is the proven demonstration of that integrity in public life, especially concerning financial matters and avoiding corruption. It's integrity in action and on record.
Can a person be honest but lack probity?
Yes. Someone might be personally honest, but if they fail to ensure transparency and accountability in their department, they lack probity. Probity is a higher institutional standard.
What are some ways to ensure probity? How do you write this in an answer?
You should list institutional mechanisms. For example, strong anti-corruption laws like the Lokpal Act, transparent procurement processes, regular audits by bodies like the CAG, and a culture of accountability.
Can you give an example of a lack of probity?
A minister using their influence to get a government project built in their own constituency for political gain, even if it's not the most needed location. This might not be illegal, but it lacks probity.
Why is it so important in governance?
Because public officials handle public money and public power. Probity ensures this power is not misused and builds the essential trust between the government and its citizens.
Let's get it locked in. Practicing probity is proven integrity and complete uprightness in public life, ensuring accountability and preventing corruption.
In short, probity is the ethical gold standard for public servants, and it is non-negotiable. Fourth is challenges of digitalization. Digitization is great for governance efficiency, no doubt, but it also creates new ethical challenges.
Like data privacy breaches, the digital divide, and algorithmic bias?
Exactly.
Bilkul. A perfect example is the PDS, Public Distribution System. Sometimes due to Aadhaar authentication failures, a poor person is denied their rightful ration. Ye technology ka ek dark side hai.
That's a very real-world example.
Time for our cross questions. What exactly is algorithmic bias?
It's when a computer system's decisions reflect the implicit biases of the humans who designed it. For example, a loan approval algorithm might unfairly reject applications from certain communities if it was trained on biased historical data.
How does the digital divide create injustice?
When essential services like education or healthcare move online, people without access to devices or the internet are left behind. This increases inequality.
How should you structure an answer on this topic?
Start by acknowledging the benefits of digitization. Then list 3-4 distinct challenges with a one-line explanation and an example for each. Your answer should be balanced.
Can digitalization lead to less human interaction and empathy in governance?
Yes, that's a major risk. A faceless digital system might ignore the unique human circumstances of a person in need. A balance between tech and touch is needed.
What is the single biggest ethical challenge of digitalization, in your opinion?
It is ensuring that technology serves humanity and promotes equity, rather than becoming a tool for exclusion, surveillance, and control.
Perfect. Let's practice. Pause and practice saying this. Digitization brings efficiency, but also introduces ethical risks like data breaches, the digital divide, and algorithmic bias.
In short, while embracing digitalization, we must proactively address its ethical challenges to ensure justice for all. And the last term is devotion to duty. This means performing your assigned role with the utmost sincerity, discipline, and commitment.
Prioritizing the public interest above your own personal comfort or even personal risk.
Yes.
The most powerful recent example, all the civil servants and healthcare workers who worked 24/7 during the COVID-19 pandemic, often at great personal risk to their own lives.
Absolutely.
That is true devotion to duty. Let's ask our questions. Is devotion to duty just doing your job well?
It's much more. It's about an emotional and moral commitment to your duty. It's having a sense of calling to serve the public good, which goes beyond the job description.
What if your duty conflicts with your personal values?
This is a classic ethical dilemma. A public servant is expected to uphold the law and the constitution, even if they personally disagree. If the conflict is severe, they may have the option to resign.
How is it related to patriotism?
For a public servant, devotion to duty is the most practical and powerful form of patriotism. It's serving the nation through diligent, honest, and compassionate work every single day.
Can we measure devotion to duty? How do we frame this for an answer?
It's not easily measurable with metrics. You can write that it is visible in one's work ethic, their commitment during crises, and the positive impact they have on people's lives. It's qualitative, not quantitative.
Can too much devotion to duty be a bad thing, like neglecting one's family?
Yes, a healthy work-life balance is important. But in times of national crisis, devotion to duty often requires personal sacrifice for the greater good.
All right, time for our final practice on this section. Say it with me. Devotion to duty is prioritizing the public interest above personal comfort, driven by a sincere commitment to service.
In short,
Devotion to duty is the powerful engine of public service, especially in challenging times.
fantastic. Moving on to our next question from 2020. Distinguish between laws and rules. Discuss the role of ethics in formulating them.
Broad micro theme.
Frameworks of control.
So, what's the big difference? Let's break it down.
Laws are the big, formal blueprint for society. They are created by the government, like the parliament, and they apply to everyone.
Jaise the Indian Penal Code.
Exactly.
And rules are like the instruction manual for a specific organization or group. They are usually less formal and have a limited scope.
Right. For example, the Code of Conduct of the International Cricket Council, ICC, outlines rules for fair play that only apply to cricketers.
Got it. So law is for the whole country, rule is for a specific game or office, but ethics kahan fit hoti hain in their formulation?
Ethics is the foundation for both. The best way to answer this question is to create a table in your mind.
Okay.
The columns would be basis of distinction, laws, and rules. Let's go through the points. First, formulation and enforcement. Laws are made through a rigorous legislative process with public debate. Ethical principles like justice, equality, and fairness are supposed to guide this process.
The Indian Constitution is a prime example.
Exactly. And for rules, rules are set by authorities within their own domains, like a company or a sports body. Here, ethical considerations like transparency, accountability, and procedural fairness are crucial.
For example, a school making a new rule should be transparent about why.
Yes. Okay, next basis for distinction, authority and scope. Laws get their authority from the state based on ideas like the social contract theory. They have a wide scope.
Jaise?
The Motor Vehicles Act applies to every driver in India. Rules get their authority from the organization that creates them and apply only to its members.
The ethical idea for laws is justice for all. For rules, it could be something like virtue ethics, following rules to promote good conduct within a specific community.
Sahi. The final distinction is flexibility and adaptability. Laws are generally rigid. Changing them requires a formal amendment process. This provides stability.
And rules?
Rules are more flexible. A school can change its dress code based on changing social norms. The ethical principle here could be utilitarianism, modifying the rule to maximize the well-being of the students.
So in conclusion, effective governance needs a synergy between laws, rules, and ethics. Grounding our laws and rules in strong ethical principles ensures they're not just tools of control, but instruments of justice.
Let's do a quick cross-questioning. How should one structure an answer for a distinguish between question for top marks?
Use a table format or clear headings for the basis of distinction, like formulation, scope, and flexibility. This makes the comparison direct, clear, and easy for the examiner to evaluate.
Can a rule be more powerful than a law in some contexts?
Yes, in its specific domain. For a professional, violating their organization's code of conduct, a rule, could lead to them losing their job, a very severe consequence, even if no law was broken.
What happens when a law is ethical, but a societal rule is not?
This is a classic social reform scenario. For example, the law might mandate gender equality in property rights, but societal rules or customs might resist it. Here, the law aims to ethically elevate the rules of society.
Why do we need rules if we already have laws?
Laws provide a broad framework. Rules provide specific operational guidelines for organizations to function efficiently and ethically within that legal framework. You can't have a law for every single office procedure.
How does ethics help in the interpretation of laws and rules?
Ethics provides the spirit behind the letter of the law. A judge or an administrator uses ethical principles to interpret ambiguous laws in a way that promotes justice and fairness.
Okay, let's practice. Rehearse this. Laws are the state's formal framework, while rules are an organization's specific guidelines. Both must be grounded in ethics to ensure justice.
In short, law provides the skeleton, rules provide the muscle, and ethics provides the conscience for a civilized society. Next up, from 2019, a deeper dive into a concept we touched upon. What is meant by constitutional morality? How does one uphold constitutional morality?
Broad microtheme, the Constitution's living spirit. We discussed this briefly, but let's go deeper. Constitutional morality, a concept championed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, means giving supremacy to the values enshrined in the Constitution. Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, over any personal, political, or religious beliefs.
So it's not just about following the articles written in the book, but living the spirit of the Constitution.
Exactly.
It's about making those values your own moral compass.
But why is it so significant?
In a diverse democracy like India, it's the ultimate safeguard. It prevents majoritarianism, where the majority's views might crush minority rights.
Acha.
It ensures the Constitution remains a living, breathing document for social justice and transformation.
Okay, that's the what. Now for the crucial part. How do we actually uphold it? What are the practical steps? The answer needs to be structured around this.
Exactly. You can structure this part with 3 clear headings. First, upholding the rule of law. This means respecting legal processes and institutions like the courts and the parliament, even when you disagree with a particular verdict or law. For example, accepting Supreme Court judgments, like in the Sabrimala temple case, is upholding constitutional morality even if it's unpopular.
Right. Second point is protecting fundamental rights. This isn't a passive act. It means actively defending the rights of all citizens, especially the most marginalized groups.
So standing up against discrimination based on caste, religion, or gender, as mandated by Article 15.
Is a direct application of constitutional morality. And third, promoting constitutional values in public discourse. This means public servants, leaders, and citizens must advocate for constitutional ideals like secularism, fraternity, and scientific temper in their public and private lives. They must reject any speech or action that divides society.
So, some questions. In an answer, how should one balance the definition and the how to uphold part?
Give about 1/3 of your space to defining the concept and its significance. The remaining 2/3 should be dedicated to the practical methods of upholding it, using specific examples or articles for each point to make your answer concrete.
Can constitutional morality evolve over time?
Absolutely. As society evolves, our understanding of justice and equality deepens. The judiciary interprets the Constitution in light of these contemporary challenges, which is how constitutional morality stays relevant and dynamic.
What is the biggest challenge to constitutional morality in India today?
A key challenge is the conflict between popular morality, which can be driven by temporary social or political sentiments, and the timeless principles of the Constitution. Upholding constitutional values often requires immense courage to go against the popular tide.
Is this concept only for public servants and judges?
Not at all. It is a duty for every single citizen. When a citizen stands up against a discriminatory practice in their own neighborhood or votes based on constitutional values, they are upholding constitutional morality.
How does constitutional morality relate to the preamble of the Constitution?
The preamble is the very essence, the DNA of constitutional morality. The values of justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity mentioned in the preamble are the guiding stars for every action taken under the Constitution.
Great. Now practice saying this. Constitutional morality means internalizing the Constitution's values and actively upholding them through respect for the rule of law and the protection of fundamental rights.
In short, constitutional morality is the commitment to ensure the Constitution is not just a legal text, but a lived reality for every citizen.
All right, let's get into a classic case study from 2018. This tests your practical, ethical reasoning. Suppose the government of India is thinking of constructing a dam in a mountain valley bound by forests and inhabited by ethnic communities. What rational policy should it resort to in dealing with unforeseen contingencies?
Broad micro-theme, development versus ethics.
This is a classic ethics question. A big development project versus environmental and human costs. The core issue here is balancing national progress with justice and sustainability for the most vulnerable.
Exactly. The source material suggests that a rational policy must be built on 2 strong pillars, a comprehensive impact assessment and deep stakeholder engagement. This entire approach is guided by the Gandhian principle of Sarvodaya, the well-being of all.
Let's break down the first pillar, comprehensive impact assessment. What does this involve?
Your answer should have these subpoints.
It means you must scientifically evaluate all potential consequences before a single brick is laid. This includes 3 specific assessments. First, an environmental impact assessment, EIA, to predict the effect on biodiversity, water, and ecosystems.
For example, the Ken-Betwa River Linking Project's EIA detailed its impact on the Panna Tiger Reserve.
Yes. Second, a social impact assessment, SIA. This analyzes the effect on local communities, displacement, loss of livelihood, cultural disruption. The Sardar Sarovar Dam's SIA, for instance, had to address the massive task of resettling displaced tribal communities.
And third,
A point many people miss.
a cultural impact assessment. This is about documenting and protecting indigenous knowledge, traditions, and sacred heritage sites that might be submerged. This shows respect for the community's identity.
Okay, that's the assessment part. What about the second pillar? Stakeholder engagement and communication.
This is about making the process transparent and inclusive. It reflects the Rawlsian principle of justice as fairness.
Okay.
It involves three key actions. First, meaningful community consultations through public hearings to get genuine feedback, not just as a formality.
Second action?
Transparent information dissemination. You must provide all project information, its benefits, risks, and mitigation plans in local languages so people can make informed decisions. Using tools like the government's Bhashini project can help here.
And the third?
Of a robust grievance redressal mechanism. You need an accessible and fair system where affected people can file complaints and get timely resolutions. The National Green Tribunal, NGT, is an example of such a platform for environmental issues.
Okay, cross-questioning time. For a case study like this, what is the best way to structure the answer?
Start by identifying the core ethical dilemma. Then, propose a policy framework with clear headings like impact assessment and stakeholder engagement. Under each heading, provide specific, actionable subpoints with real-world examples as we just discussed. This shows you are a problem solver.
What if, after all assessments, the project is still found to be very harmful?
That is the toughest ethical call. A truly rational policy must include a no-go option. If the negative impacts are irreversible and catastrophic, the principle of sustainable development and intergenerational equity demands that the project be abandoned in favor of a less harmful alternative.
How can the government ensure the engagement is genuine and not just a formality?
By legally empowering local communities through frameworks like the Forest Rights Act, ensuring their consent is mandatory, not just consultation, and having independent observers monitor the entire process.
What role does technology play in mitigating these contingencies?
Technology like satellite imaging and remote sensing can help in better environmental monitoring. Digital platforms can be used for transparent information sharing and grievance redressal, ensuring real-time accountability. DSPs guide the state to promote the welfare of the people, protect the environment, Article 48A, and safeguard the interests of weaker sections. A rational dam policy is a direct implementation of these constitutional principles.
Awesome. Now rehearse this thought. A rational policy for large projects requires a 360-degree impact assessment, environmental, social, and cultural, and genuine stakeholder engagement with a robust grievance redressal system.
Short. Ethical development isn't about stopping progress. It's about making progress inclusive, sustainable, and just for everyone, especially the most vulnerable.
Here's another really interesting one from 2018. It's a statement analysis. In doing a good thing, everything is permitted which is not prohibited expressly or by clear implication. Examine the statement with suitable examples in the context of a public servant discharging his/her duties.
Broad, micro-theme, ends versus means in public service.
This statement is basically saying if you're trying to do something good and there's no specific rule against your method, then it's okay. It's a classic the ends justify the means kind of argument. But is it really that simple for a public servant?
Not at all. And your answer must strongly argue against this. The source material explains that this consequentialist view is extremely risky in public service.
Why?
While doing good, promoting public welfare is the goal, a narrow focus on outcomes can destroy procedural justice, fairness, and ultimately public trust.
So how should we structure the answer? What are the specific dangers of this mindset that we should highlight?
Start by explaining the statement, then immediately state your disagreement. Then detail the dangers with examples. First, it can erode public trust and legitimacy.
Jaise?
For example, a district magistrate might divert funds from an education budget to build a road for drought relief. The goal is good, but bypassing procedure raises questions about propriety and can damage public trust in the system's fairness.
What's the second danger?
It creates a lack of accountability and transparency. If there are no clear guidelines, it can lead to arbitrary decisions based on personal whims. The 2G spectrum allocation case is a classic example, where a lack of transparent criteria for a good goal, faster telecom growth, led to massive allegations of corruption. Exactly. And a third one, it can create and hide conflicts of interest. A public servant might overlook building code violations by a relative, thinking it will boost economic development in the area. The good outcome is used to justify a decision that compromises their impartiality.
So if this approach is so dangerous, what's the alternative? How should a public servant navigate these boundaries?
The answer should propose an alternative framework. A public servant must follow Kant's categorical imperative, the idea that your actions should be based on universal moral principles. Adherence to rules and procedures isn't just bureaucracy, it is the bedrock of fairness and equality.
So the means are just as important as the ends.
Yes.
Let's do our cross-questioning. In an essay on this topic, what should the introduction and conclusion focus on?
The introduction should define the statement's core philosophy, consequentialism, and immediately state the central tension, the conflict between good ends and ethical means.
And the conclusion?
The conclusion must synthesize this by stating that for a public servant, the two are inseparable. Just outcomes can only be achieved through just processes.
Is there any situation where a public servant can bend the rules for a greater good?
Yes, in rare, extreme humanitarian crises, where lives are at immediate risk, as we discussed with the conscience question. However, this must be the absolute exception, not the rule, and the decision must be documented, transparent, and defensible based on constitutional values.
How does this statement relate to the concept of nishkama karma from the Bhagavad Gita?
It's almost the opposite. Nishkama karma emphasizes focusing on your duty, the means, without attachment to the results, the ends. This statement dangerously overemphasizes the ends, which can corrupt the means. This is a great point to add in the answer.
What's the difference between discretion and arbitrariness in this context?
Discretion is the freedom to decide within a set of rules and principles. Arbitrariness is deciding without any rules or principles based on personal whim. The statement dangerously risks turning legitimate discretion into dangerous arbitrariness.
How can an organization prevent this mindset from taking root?
By establishing a strong, clear ethical code of conduct, promoting a culture of transparency, having robust oversight mechanisms like social audits, and providing regular ethics training that focuses on navigating such gray areas.
Time to practice? Try saying this. For a public servant, the good outcome must be achieved through processes that are fair, transparent, and uphold the rule of law because the means and ends are ethically inseparable.
In short, in public service, how you reach the destination is just as important as the destination itself.
Let's jump back to 2016 for this fundamental question. Law and ethics are considered to be the two tools for controlling human conduct so as to make it conducive to civilized social existence. A. Discuss how they achieve this objective. B. Giving examples show how the two differ in their approaches.
Broad micro-theme. External versus internal control.
Okay, so we have two tools to keep society running smoothly, law and ethics. For part A of the question, how do they work together to control human conduct?
They work in a complementary way. Law provides the external framework of control, while ethics provides the internal moral compass. Let's first break down how law works through its legal control mechanisms.
Acha.
Law controls us primarily through deterrence. The Indian Penal Code defines crimes and punishments, which deters people from committing them. It also works through dispute resolution. The courts give us a peaceful way to resolve conflicts. And finally, through protection of rights.
Like Article 21 of our Constitution.
Exactly, the right to life.
So law is the stick, the external force with clear consequences. What about ethics? How does it influence behavior?
Ethics works internally. It's the conscience. It influences conduct by appealing to our sense of moral responsibility. This aligns with Aristotle's virtue ethics, which is all about building good character.
How?
It works through internalized values. A doctor follows a code of ethics not just because of rules, but because they have internalized the value of patient welfare. It also works through social norms, like respecting elders, which guide behavior without a law.
That perfectly covers part A. Now for part B. How do their approaches differ? The best way to answer this is to highlight the contrasts.
Absolutely. The core difference is the locus of control. Law's approach is external. It compels behavior through fear of punishment.
And ethics?
Ethics approach is internal. It inspires behavior through an individual's conscience and values. A law stops you from stealing because you might get caught. Ethics stops you from stealing because you believe it's wrong.
Another difference.
The scope. Law has a limited scope. It can only regulate actions that can be proven. It can't regulate thoughts or intentions.
But ethics does.
Yes, ethics has a much broader scope. It governs our intentions, our character, and our duties to others, even when no one is watching.
Okay, cross-questioning time. For a two-part question like this, how do you allocate your word count?
It's best to divide it roughly equally. Dedicate the first half to discussing how they both achieve the objective, and the second half to clearly highlight the differences in their approaches. Use distinct examples for each part to avoid repetition.
Can a society function with only ethics and no laws?
It's highly unlikely. While ethics are powerful, they are subjective and not universally followed. Laws provide a necessary, objective, and enforceable baseline of conduct to prevent chaos and protect the vulnerable.
And what about a society with only laws and no ethics?
That would be a cold, mechanical, and oppressive society. People would only do the bare minimum to avoid punishment. There would be no compassion, no trust, the very things that make a society truly civilized.
Which is more effective in bringing long-term social change, law or ethics?
Law can bring about rapid, visible change by forcing behavior, like banning untouchability. But for that change to be truly accepted and sustained, a corresponding shift in societal ethics is required. So law initiates, but ethics sustains.
How does the concept of dharma relate to this discussion?
Dharma is a beautiful concept that bridges law and ethics. It refers to one's righteous duty, which includes legal, social, and moral obligations. It's a holistic approach, where external rules and internal conscience are seen as part of the same cosmic order.
This is a fantastic value addition for your answer. Let's practice. Rehearse this sentence. Law controls conduct through external enforcement and deterrence, while ethics influences behavior through internalized values and moral responsibility.
In short, law tells you what you must do, while ethics tells you what you should do. A good society needs both.
I love this next one from 2015. It really gets to the heart of public service. A mere compliance with law is not enough. The public servant also has to have a well-developed sensibility to ethical issues for effective discharge of duties. Do you agree? Explain with the help of two examples where I, an act is ethically right but not legally, and I, an act is legally right but not ethically.
Broad micro-theme. Legality versus morality.
So the statement is clear. Just following the law isn't enough for a public servant. You need an ethical sense. Do we agree?
We absolutely agree. And your answer must state this strongly in the introduction. The law provides the minimum standard of conduct, the floor. Ethics provides the ideal, the ceiling.
And effective governance happens in that space.
Exactly. The question then asks for two types of examples to prove this.
Let's tackle the first one. An act that is ethically right but not legally. This is where things get tricky, but the examples are powerful.
Yes. The classic example is civil disobedience. Think of Mahatma Gandhi's salt satyagraha. Breaking the colonial salt law was illegal, but it was ethically justified as a protest against an unjust law.
Another example is whistleblowing.
Right. Sometimes an officer has to leak information about massive corruption, which may be against the Official Secrets Act, but is ethically necessary for the public good.
A more humanitarian example.
Aiding refugees. During the Holocaust, German citizens who sheltered Jewish people were breaking the laws of the Nazi regime. But their actions were profoundly ethical, upholding human dignity against a tyrannical state.
Okay, now for the second, and perhaps more common, scenario for a public servant. An act that is legally right, but not ethically.
This is the gray area where most ethical dilemmas lie. A great example is the Bhopal gas tragedy. The legal settlement reached might have been legally sound, according to the laws of the time.
But it remains ethically contentious due to the questions of inadequate corporate accountability and compensation for the victims.
Precisely.
What's another example of legal but unethical?
Exploiting legal loopholes. A company might use a legal loophole to pay almost no taxes, or a pharmaceutical company might legally increase the price of a life-saving drug to an exorbitant amount. It's within the law, but ethically questionable.
And one more related to the environment.
Environmental degradation. An industrial project might have all the legal permits to operate, but if it pollutes a river and destroys the local ecosystem, it is ethically wrong because it violates the principle of intergenerational equity, our duty to leave a healthy planet for future generations.
Let's do some cross-questioning. How should an answer to this question be structured for maximum impact?
Strongly agree with the statement in the introduction, explaining why law is not enough. Then, create two very distinct sections with clear headings: ethically right, legally wrong, and legally right, ethically wrong. Provide at least two strong, well-explained examples under each heading.
In the ethically right but illegal cases, who decides what is ethically right? Isn't that subjective?
It is, and that's the risk. The justification usually rests on appealing to higher, universal moral principles like human rights, justice, or dignity, which are often enshrined in constitutional preambles or international declarations like the UDHR.
Are there any safeguards to prevent public servants from just breaking any law they find unethical?
Yes, the principle of rule of law is paramount. A public servant should use official channels to voice dissent or suggest reforms. Breaking the law is an extreme last resort, usually in the context of civil disobedience against a fundamentally unjust regime, not for everyday administrative issues.
How does this connect to the idea of spirit of the law versus letter of the law?
It's the exact same concept. Mere compliance is following the letter of the law. Having ethical sensibility is about understanding and acting on the spirit of the law, the underlying purpose of justice and public welfare that the law is supposed to serve.
What should a public servant do when faced with a legal but unethical order from a superior?
This is a classic dilemma. They can politely refuse, citing the ethical conflict in writing. They can escalate the matter to a higher authority or a vigilance body.
In a healthy system, there should be mechanisms to protect such officials.
Time to practice. Rehearse this. Effective public service requires moving beyond mere legal compliance to embrace an ethical sensibility. Because some actions are ethically necessary despite being illegal, and many actions are unethical despite being legal.
In short, the law is the map, but ethics is the compass. A public servant needs both to navigate the complex terrain of governance.
Finally, let's go to our last question from 2013. It's a very personal and deep one. What do you understand by the term voice of conscience? How do you prepare yourself to heed to the voice of conscience?
Broad micro theme, the inner moral compass.
The voice of conscience. We talk about it all the time. But what is it? Really, how do you define it in an answer?
You can define it as that intuitive inner sense of right and wrong that guides our actions when external rules are absent or conflicting. It's our internal moral compass.
Okay.
The philosopher Immanuel Kant connected it to his categorical imperative, that inner voice that tells us to act on principles we would want everyone else to follow.
So it's this inner feeling of obligation to do the right thing? But the really important part is the second half. How do you prepare yourself to actually listen to it? It's not automatic, right?
Not at all. It's a skill you have to cultivate. Your answer should be structured around these preparation methods. The first set of methods is about strengthening your inner moral compass.
Okay, how?
The first method is self-reflection. Regularly examining your own values, biases, and actions. Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography, My Experiments with Truth, is a masterclass in this.
And the second?
Developing empathy. Actively trying to understand the feelings and perspectives of others, especially the vulnerable. Reading diverse literature, traveling, and listening to people's stories helps build empathy. When you feel what others feel, your conscience becomes stronger.
And a third way to strengthen the compass?
Cultivating moral courage. This is the courage to act on your conscience, especially when it's difficult or you're under pressure from peers or superiors. The stories of whistleblowers show the immense courage this requires.
Okay, so self-reflection, empathy, and moral courage strengthen the inner compass. What other practical steps can we take?
The source also suggests we can focus on cultivating ethical conduct through external support. One way is by seeking wise counsel, talking to trusted mentors, family, or friends when you face a dilemma. Arjuna seeking counsel from Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita is the ultimate example of this.
What else?
Practicing mindfulness and meditation. This makes you more aware of your own thoughts and motivations, helping you make conscious choices instead of reactive ones. It helps you hear that quiet inner voice above the noise of daily life.
And the final method?
Familiarizing yourself with ethical frameworks. Understanding concepts from great thinkers or the principles in our own constitution, justice, liberty, equality, gives you a structured way to analyze a problem instead of just relying on a gut feeling. It educates your conscience.
Let's do our final cross-questioning. In an answer, is it better to focus more on the definition or the how-to part?
The how-to preparation part is more important and carries more marks. Define voice of conscience concisely in the beginning and then dedicate the majority of your answer to explaining these practical, actionable steps one can take to cultivate and heat it.
Can the voice of conscience be wrong? We discussed this earlier.
Yes, and it's crucial to acknowledge this in your answer. An uninformed or biased conscience can be dangerous. That is precisely why these preparation methods, like self-reflection, empathy, and studying ethical frameworks are so important. They help educate and refine our conscience to align with universal human values.
How is conscience different from intuition?
Intuition is a gut feeling that can be about anything, a business decision, a creative idea. Conscience is specifically a moral or ethical intuition. It's the gut feeling about what is right and wrong.
What role do stories and role models play in preparing one's conscience?
An immense role. Stories of moral exemplars, people like Nelson Mandela or Mother Teresa, inspire us and give us a template for how to act. They are a powerful way to educate our conscience beyond abstract principles.
How does a bureaucratic culture sometimes suppress the voice of conscience?
Bureaucracies often emphasize rigid adherence to rules, hierarchy, and impersonality. This can create an environment where officials are discouraged from exercising personal moral judgment, leading them to silence their conscience in favor of just following orders. Acknowledging this shows practical awareness.
Let's end with our practice cue. Practice this thought. The voice of conscience is an inner moral compass that must be actively prepared and strengthened through self-reflection, empathy, moral courage, and seeking wisdom.
In short, listening to your conscience is not a passive act. It's a lifelong practice of moral cultivation and courage. What a journey! What a marathon! आज हमने ethics के core ideas को explore किया.
It was amazing.
Broad, micro theme. Ethics, law, and conscience in governance. Let's quickly recap what we covered.
Okay.
We started by understanding the complex relationship between our inner conscience
and external laws. दोनों जरूरी हैं, but balance is the key.
Right.
We then defined crucial terms like constitutional morality, probity, and conflict of interest, which are the non-negotiable pillars of good governance. याद रखना.
बिल्कुल.
We saw the difference between laws, the state's formal blueprint, and rules, an organization's specific manual, and how ethics is the foundation for both.
We discussed how public servants must navigate complex situations, from building dams in sensitive areas to knowing when an act is legally right but ethically wrong.
The gray areas.
Finally, we understood that the voice of conscience is not magic. It's a skill to be developed through dedicated self-reflection, empathy, and immense moral courage.
बिल्कुल. तो अगली बार जब तुम कोई डिसीजन लो, छोटा या बड़ा, इवन समथिंग एज स्मॉल एज शेयरिंग अ रूमर ऑन व्हाट्सएप, एक सेकंड के लिए पॉज करना और सोचना, इज दिस लीगली राइट? इज दिस एथिकली राइट? और मेरा कॉन्शियंस क्या कह रहा है? The answer to that triangle of questions might just define who you are.
Well said.
This was a super deep, mega lecture. And I hope तुम लोगों को मजा आया और सब कुछ क्रिस्टल क्लियर हो गया. अगर हाँ, तो प्लीज़ हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करना मत भूलना, इस वीडियो को एक पावरफुल लाइक दो और कमेंट्स में बताओ कि तुम्हारा सबसे बड़ा टेक अवे क्या था.
We read every single one.
मिलते हैं अगली डीप डाइव में. Keep learning, keep growing.